Hi, Patrick Henry Johnson. How are you, Patrick?
I'm good, Donna. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks
Yeah.
for taking your morning to hang out with me, and let's talk about what's going on in your life. And
It's a lot going on.
yeah, I know you as a wonderful artist. I think a lot of people, kids, would like to hear about you and get into your world and see what could they do to be like you.
You know, it's interesting because I'm working with a guy. He's a younger artist, and he texted me yesterday, and he offered X amount of dollars for my services.
Okay.
And his offer was very generous,
Mhm.
and well thought out,
Mhm.
uh, very precise. So I responded on the text by telling him that I accept his offer, and I think that his offer is generous and also well thought out, and I think that he's going to go a long way. You know, he's 29 years old. He'll be 30 on September the 30th.
Okay.
So he says to me in the text, and his response was, coming from you, that means a lot to me because how much I admire your work and how much I admire you. I consider myself, you're a giant to me. And I was like, wow. these roles, I remember being in the other
His
position,
shoes, yeah.
and the roles have reversed.
Yeah.
And I remember how I wanted to be treated by people who I looked up to. So I make sure that I give to someone what I wanted for myself, how I wanted to be treated, how I wanted to be acknowledged. Yeah.
So looking back, then how did you feel when you saw your first exhibit? When you walked into the room and your first exhibit was up?
I was just happy that it was hanging. I was happy that it was hanging, that people were actually in the gallery to look at the work. And I didn't even know what it meant. I didn't even know what the work meant itself.
How old were you?
21.
21.
Yeah, I was 21. I didn't know. I had no idea. I look at myself back then, I was just so fresh and wild. I was just wild.
What about your first painting? When you finished your first painting and someone bought it, how did you feel?
I felt Barbara Lakin was the person who bought the painting.
Okay.
And the name of the painting was One Giant Step for Mankind, and that was my foray into surrealism.
Okay.
And she bought the painting for $1,700.
Wow. Your first painting?
Yeah, 4 feet by 4 feet.
Wow, 4 by 4.
4 by 4. And I painted that. I lived on in a small single studio, all by myself, staying up all night listening to Sade, painting, and that was the first painting that I sold. Yep.
Very cool.
And then I ended up working for Barbara. She owned a baby bedding company, Lambs and Ivy. So I ended up being an illustrator for her company for about 3 years.
3 years? Okay. Well, tell me about you, Patrick.
Shit, what you want to know?
Where you from? How did all that good
Oh,
stuff.
okay. Well, originally I was born in Valdosta, Georgia.
Okay.
I swear this is the greatest story ever. I was born in Valdosta, Georgia, and my oldest brother kidnapped me when I was 6 years old. He was 16. He kidnapped me. We got on a Trailway bus in Valdosta, Georgia, and caught the bus without anybody knowing. And we went to St. Petersburg, Florida, which is a 4-hour bus ride to where my mom was. My mom moved to Florida in pursuit of my father.
Mm.
So my mom was married and had an affair with my father, and had 3 kids while she was married to someone else. So she took my older sister, who is a year older than I am, because my older sister was his favorite. So she took my older sister as the lure, you know, to try to get him back. But that didn't work. Yeah, that didn't
And where
work.
were you?
I was, so it's my older sister, myself, and then my brother. So I'm right in the middle.
Okay.
And it's interesting that I'm right in the middle because my birthday is October 15th, which is right in the middle of the month. I'm Libra, which is balanced scales,
Okay.
right in the middle. So that just came to me.
Okay, so how'd you get to Los Angeles?
I left Fort Lauderdale. I was going to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
And, okay, when I tell you I have stories, I have stories.
I remember one, and I hope you tell me, but I'll let you go there.
I forged my mother's signature
Uh-huh.
to get into art school
Wow.
because she wouldn't sign the papers for grants or loans.
Financial aid. Uh-huh.
So I would get my mom's all the envelopes, and I would take out her letters, and whatever she signed, I would just copy it. I would copy it
And being
over
the
and over and
artist you
over.
are.
Being the artist that I am.
Uh-huh.
And I mastered her signature.
Mm-hmm.
And I signed her signature to all those documents, and I filled out the grants. I filled out everything. I had no idea what I was doing.
Wow.
I just knew that I had to get out of there.
Uh-huh.
And I knew that her signature was key to it. And then, you know, months later, I got a letter in the mail from the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale saying I was accepted. I was like, I did it. I was like, man, it worked.
Uh-huh.
It actually worked. They gave me my dorm room. They gave me all these things.
Wow. Did she ever find out?
No, she doesn't know to this day.
Really? You should tell her. See
I'm
what
going
she
to tell her.
says.
Next
She
time I
can't
go
do
back,
nothing
yeah.
now. You can say, I'm grown. What you gonna do?
Next time I go back, I'm going to tell her. Yeah, that's.
And how many years did you stay there?
It was a 2-year course.
2 years.
They kicked me out after 9 months because the loan ran out.
Okay.
So I was only there for that 9 months, and then they evicted me from the dorms. But the experience that I got from being in those dorms, surrounded by other artists from all over the planet, was exactly what I needed. And that 9 months afforded me the experience of how to interact with different people.
Other than your own
Other than my,
neighborhood
you know,
and race. And,
yeah. And I became a master of myself. At that point in my life, I became a master of myself, where I could be with any person, group. It didn't matter to me. I just wanted to further my understanding about art and make myself better as an artist. One particular guy, Danny Alario from Barcelona, Spain, he was such a imaginative artist. I could draw what I saw in front of me, but my imagination was lacking. And he couldn't necessarily draw what he saw in front of him, but his imagination was, you know, unlimitless. So him and I became tight.
Yeah.
We would drink beer together, smoke weed together, chase girls together, all of these things. And I saw how his questions were always, what if? I was like, well, Danny, what do you mean? He says, well, what if that table was floating and it just stayed there? And you could just look at it and it's just hovering above the ground. And he said, just as a painting, that would be really incredible. So it was always what if. And then I started posing those questions to myself, and those questions started to affect my paintings. So I was able to use how he saw things, use it for myself, and then paint. And my imagination just took off.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he was able to use the technicalities that I had to increase his proficiency and also his illustration abilities as an artist.
Okay. Well, I got a lot of what you said as being a painter, your beginning life as a painter. So describe to me you as a painter and as an artist, because, you know, for some reason I think you I don't know how to explain it. You're so deep. You're so deep, and I know you're a painter, and painter is an artist, but you're an artist in terms of your last exhibit. Your last exhibit, can you explain that? And then go into you as a painter and as an artist.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It makes perfect sense.
Okay.
What Danny Alario did for me was open up my mind.
Okay.
And also, at 14, I was introduced to Salvador Dali.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, as an artist?
No, as an artist.
Just the paintings? And,
Yeah.
Okay.
My art teacher.
I'm like, did you really meet him?
I wish I had.
No, I know.
My art teacher, Jill East.
Uh-huh.
You know, there was slides, a slideshow, and all these different artists, Chagall, Rembrandt, Picasso, on the slideshow. And then Salvador Dali's image came up. And I was like, oh my God, what is that? What is that? So I raised my hand. I was like, Miss East, what is that? And so she explained to me what it was. It singed an image in my brain.
Yeah.
And it made my heart quicken. Everything about what I saw with his paintings blew my mind, but I couldn't. I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to do it. Okay, so once I became really good with my left hand, I discovered that writing backwards with your left hand is the same as writing with your right hand, because the energy moves away from your body. So a left-handed person writes across their body like this, and it always seems awkward. But if you wrote backwards with your left hand, it would have a natural flow just like the right hand does. So, and the right hand, being that it's the dominant hand, so you're mirroring everything that the right hand does. So that's the idea that I took into this project, to write everything, paint everything backwards, and you had to view it in a mirror to see what it meant, which made the whole process interactive, where the viewer had to become involved in the work, and makes the work very intimate.
So how did you become a murist?
I answered an ad in the LA Times, 1993, and it said artist wanted. And I answered that ad, and the guys who hired me were from Argentina. And those guys also, to piggyback what I talked about the person who became a mentor for me, these guys picked up where he left off. And they picked up without ego. His name is Carlos, and Carlos was such an amazing guy. You know, he was from Argentina. The other guy was from Chile. There was another guy from Norway. Another guy from Russia. So it was like a United Nations in this huge art studio. And I didn't know that I was an illustrator and not a painter. An illustrator, you know, you have to draw exactly what you see, but a painter indicates. So you can do indication with a flat brush or a pointed brush, but an illustrator has to look exactly like what the thing is to sell the idea. I didn't know that's what I was until I started working in this studio.
Isn't it interesting? I've heard from someone, I can't remember, but he says, whenever you're ready, the teacher will arrive.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true, and you might not be aware of it, and you might not even be aware of it that you're being taught.
Right.
But it's happening nonetheless.
Yeah. That is true. So how did you discipline yourself to become a mural painter? Because you were a canvas painter, right?
Yeah.
And then how did you open your mind to paint large and to have that discipline to do that?
I wanted to master as many disciplines as I could, whether it be pen and ink, watercolor, oils, acrylics, clay, sculpturing, carving. I just wanted to master as many disciplines as I could, and muralist was one of them.
So you
Man, I
wanted
would
to do
love
that.
to paint on the side of a building. That would
You
be,
sure you wasn't painting on your mama's walls?
I did.
You did.
Yeah, I did. I got in so much trouble.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I would sneak and paint on her walls.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So you had discipline for that. What did you do? I mean, your first mural, was it perfect or what was it? How did it?
Well, I would say it was perfect, but not.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is Carlos in the studio took me through a tutelage of where
So can you repeat how you learned how to
process of
do a
scale.
mural? Yeah, and how it became perfect, your first one actually.
Yeah. So to do a mural, you have to know scale. And on the scale that I learned was 1 inch on a sketch equals 1 foot on the wall. So everything that's in that inch is going to be the exact same thing on that. Is 10 inches, that means your mural is going to be 10 feet. And every little detail in that 10-inch sketch is going to translate to the wall. And that's how you do scale. So when you present a client with a sketch for an area that they want, a mural, you present it in scale. Because most people don't have an idea what it's going to look like. So you have to assume for a client that the client is ignorant to what it is that they're asking, because most of them don't know what they're asking for. They just want their area, wherever it is, to look good, but they don't know what they're asking for, unless it's an interior designer, it's another artist, or something of that ilk. But most of the time, the common person, they don't know.
So I'm going to ask you a story, and I ask you a question, and I hope you were the artist that told me about it. Did you live on the beach?
Yes.
I remember that.
I did. I lived on Fort Lauderdale Beach. I lived with a midget.
Okay.
His name was Jimmy. And Jimmy thought he was, the superhero Thor. Jimmy thought he was Thor. He made a hammer, he had a cape, he had a helmet, he had the whole 9 yards. And he would wake up every morning playing Alice Cooper.
Oh, God.
So we used to smoke weed, listen to Alice Cooper, and go to the beach. And I lived on the beach with Jimmy for about 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you still paint, or you just hung out?
Yeah. When I got kicked out of the dorms,
Okay.
that's
okay.
where I lived.
Okay.
I lived with
I
Jimmy.
never forgot that story.
Yeah.
So do you do paint on canvas, right?
I love painting on canvas, but I think I have transitioned because right now wood is so much better for me.
Wood, interesting.
Yeah, so my friend who's a carpenter, he makes my panels for me. And I'm working on a panel, it's 8 feet by 3 feet. And the panel doesn't move. So when you apply your brushstroke to canvas, the canvas moves a little bit. But with a wooden frame, it doesn't move. It's like painting on a wall. It doesn't move. So when you gesso that wooden thing, it's nice, and you can hear the brush. Such a beautiful sound, and the feeling of that brush freshly on wood. It's incredible. So I don't
Interesting.
know
I've
if
never
I'll
tried
ever go back to canvas for
I've
a
never
while.
tried canvas. I mean, wood.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
So when you do it, you sand the edges to make sure the edges are not sharp.
Mm-hmm.
You sand all the way around. Everything is nice and round. And once you start painting,
Mm-hmm. Do you treat the wood?
I just gesso it.
Gesso it. Okay.
Just gesso. 2 coats of gesso.
Mm-hmm.
Roll it on so you don't have any streaks.
Right.
Roll it on and then sand it down.
Mm-hmm.
Roll it on again, and you're ready to go.
That's cool. So go back to the murals. Tell me about your murals and where they are.
Oh, okay. My most famous piece is the Elixir mural, which is at Crenshaw and Stocker
Mm-hmm.
on the Liquor Bank wall, which is 40 feet tall by 40 feet wide.
Okay.
And I painted most of that mural with a 20-foot extension ladder.
Wow.
So I would extend it all the way out,
Mm-hmm.
climb up the ladder, paint,
Mm-hmm.
come down,
Mm-hmm.
move it, go back up the ladder, and that's why it took me 3 months to do.
3 months.
Yeah, and
Okay.
if I had the proper materials,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have been done in a month.
In a month.
Yeah.
And what type of materials do you use?
I use sometimes regular house paint
Mm-hmm.
for the backgrounds,
Mm-hmm.
but the best mural paint that I've ever used is called Nova Color.
I've heard of them.
Nova Color,
Yep.
the pigment in Nova Color is so rich
Yep.
and so vibrant, it rivals oils.
They're on La Cienega, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It rivals oils. So
what-
once you paint with Nova Color,
Uh-huh.
you don't want to paint anything here.
I went in there one day and this man he was buying gallons because he was a mural painter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a gallon of, let's say, cadmium red,
Mm-hmm.
that's $85.
Wow. Okay.
So you got to know what you're doing,
Yeah.
or you're gonna fuck it up.
Yeah. So, what about your first mural painting? Where was it?
The first one, where was the first one?
Wasn't it the one on Crenshaw and
Crenshaw
Vernon?
and
Vernon.
Vernon.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was called The Gift.
Yes.
Yeah, and wow, everyone told me that there was no way that this guy is Israeli who owned the building.
Uh-huh.
It's like there's no way that he's gonna let you paint on that wall.
Uh-huh.
I was like, well, where is he? And people showed me where he was and
Uh-huh.
his reputation.
Right.
But that didn't matter to me. I went over and knocked on his door. He came to the door,
Mm-hmm.
very thick accent,
Mhm.
and he asked me what did I want. So I told him what I wanted, and he looked at me. I gave him my business card.
Mhm.
He says, "So what are you going to paint on it?" I said, "I haven't decided yet. It hadn't come to me."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "My friend, the wall is yours."
Wow.
And he had these big, thick, meaty hands.
Uh-huh.
And when I shook his hand, my hand is like enveloped. And he gave me a firm handshake.
Uh-huh.
And then I said, "I'll bring the sketch back to you so you can see it." He says, "You don't have to bring anything back. As I said,
It's
the wall is yours."
Wow. Exciting.
I was like, wow. And that was on a Friday.
Mhm.
I had a dream Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
I did a sketch of it Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
On Monday, I went back to him just to show him the sketch. He says, "Well, as I said." I said, No. I just want to show it to you."
Mm-hmm.
And when I showed it to him, he goes, "This is going to be beautiful."
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to the paint store and I asked the paint store if they had any throwaway paints. They gave me all the throwaway paints.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to mix everything
Mhm.
that I needed and get all of the colors that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I did the mural. It was 65 feet by 8 feet.
It was huge. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the theater of that
Mm-hmm.
process. And I think I got partially addicted
Mm-hmm.
to the theater part.
Okay.
And what I mean by that, I would bring music out.
Ah.
So I would bring music out and set up speakers and turn the music up.
Uh-huh.
And people that riding by in their cars,
Right.
they love the music.
Mm-hmm.
They love what was happening on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was engaged with the traffic.
Yeah.
So it was like that was my audience.
Yeah.
And this was my performance piece.
Right. Crenshaw and Vernon.
Crenshaw and Vernon, I was getting down. I was getting down.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I
So-
used to live around the corner and I saw it. I thought it was awesome. Where are your other ones?
51st and Central,
Okay.
which I was commissioned by Curran Price,
Mm-hmm.
councilman for the 9th District.
Okay.
Crenshaw High School.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. I was hired by LAUSD.
Mm-hmm.
This is about 6 years ago. I did 6 murals in a few different schools.
Okay.
LAUSD. That was a really good job.
How about the one in Starbucks?
Starbucks, that's an amazing story because Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, was the
Okay.
person who hired me. He actually hired me. And he hired me because of that mural, The Gift.
Okay.
We got in his SUV, his
Mhm.
black SUV. We drive down Crenshaw Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, okay, so where are we going? I said, no, Howard, just trust me. Trust me. So we get in front of the mural, we get out of the car, and I said, this is what I want to do at Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, did you paint this? Yeah. And he says, okay, so how much are you going to charge me for the mural at Starbucks? And I said, well, and I was thinking, and in my mind I'm going, I don't want to go too high because he might say, well, that's too much.
Mm-hmm.
But then I said, I don't want to go too low either. So then I came up with this number, and when I said it, he reached out and shook my hand immediately. I'm like, that was not enough.
That's okay.
Yeah. But the experience of being at Starbucks doing that mural
Mm-hmm.
and having someone of his magnitude to say, okay, I want you to do that for me,
Mm-hmm.
that was gratifying.
Now, is that the one on Crenshaw?
Crenshaw in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just redid it.
Okay.
I just
have to
redid
go over
it
there and check it
because
out.
it was graffitied and
Oh,
a few
yeah.
other things, so I had to
Yeah.
redo it.
Was that in your contract to keep it up?
No, it wasn't at all. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I proposed to them. I said, you know, we need to redo it. Don't let it fall in disrepair.
Mm-hmm.
It looks really bad. So I wrote a proposal, and they got the money together, and I went out there and redid it.
So what do you think of, well, first of all, I want to know, how did you feel going to Europe? And when did you go?
I went to Europe for the first time. I went by myself.
Mm-hmm.
December of 1995.
Mm-hmm.
And I was afraid,
Mm-hmm.
but I was more curious than being afraid. And so I went by myself. I took a backpack, and I was there for 18 days by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And initially I was gonna go with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife, I said, well, we can go to Europe, start in Rome, and just take a train all over.
Mm-hmm.
She said to me, she says, but do you speak Italian? It's like, no, but that's beside the point.
Mhm.
No, I don't speak Italian. She says, I'm not going anywhere with you. I don't speak Italian. You don't speak Italian. I don't speak a foreign language. We could get lost. I'm like, but that's how you find yourself.
Mm-hmm.
At that moment, I knew we were not going to be together anymore.
Wow.
I knew it. I remember her in bed and how she turned over and looked at me, and she said, I swear, these are the words. She said, you think that you're Indiana Jones and life is an adventure. And in my mind, I'm like, you goddamn right. That's
Yes,
what it is.
exactly.
That's what it is.
Uh-huh.
And she turned back over as if, you know, and that's my statement.
Yeah.
But that was the nail in the coffin.
Uh-huh.
Little did I know it, how it was going to, you know, work itself out.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that was it.
Oh, okay. Excuse me.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi, thank you.
You're
Mm-hmm.
welcome. You're welcome.
So who did you see when you were in Europe? What art museums?
I went to the Vatican Museum.
Mm-hmm.
I
What
went
was
to
your feelings behind that?
You know, the first time I went, it blew my mind. It blew my mind. I couldn't even believe the vastness of this place.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second time I went, I was disgusted. I swear, it was grotesque to me because now I understood that everything was commissioned by the Pope,
Mm-hmm.
and then a lot of stuff was just stolen.
Mm.
Just outright stolen.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have the same feeling of reverence,
Mm.
for the work. The Louvre, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I saw the Babylonian gates.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the Code of Hammurabi. I saw these beautiful, beautiful things, which were just pillaged from Assyria and in Greece and all these other places in
Mm-hmm.
Africa, Egypt. All these
Mm-hmm.
places was just pillaged. But I went to the Salvador Dali Museum in northern Spain.
Mm-hmm. That was it, huh?
That was it. Picasso's museum, the Dali Museum, and what's his name? Vincent van Gogh's work.
Vincent, uh-huh.
Yeah, I came to appreciate Van Gogh's painterly style,
Okay.
and his work was so intense. But I couldn't. To me, Picasso's work is more of the Emperor's New Clothes. To me.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't move me at all.
So what do you think of Basquiat's paintings?
I liked Basquiat's story more than I liked the work.
Mm-hmm.
And his story is mesmerizing. And then I was able to appreciate the work because of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But as a visually, it was
Mhm.
not, it didn't grab me and
Mhm.
say, I need to investigate it. But everything surrounding him,
Mhm.
the drugs, the Andy Warhol, the meteoric rise to fame,
Mhm.
the New York art scene, his first showing, all of those things encapsulates what he is. But to me, I didn't feel it in the art.
Okay, so if you had an artist that you wanted to collaborate with like the guys that you talked about earlier that are dead or alive, who would you choose?
Ooh. I think Van Gogh would be too difficult to work with.
You think?
Yeah, I think he would be too difficult to work with
Mhm.
because of his manicness.
Mm.
I think that I would go with Dali first
Mhm.
because of his outrageousness and way outness,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be an environment of a festive environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go with Dali first, and then I would have Jimi Hendrix to come in and hang out with us.
Yeah. I saw you did paint him, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
seeing. So you like to paint different people and
I
legends.
like to paint. It's not so much famous people.
Mhm.
I like to paint people who inspire me.
Right.
And I
okay.
like to paint people who have discovered that they are the one,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't have to say that.
Because you know, huh?
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
feel it. Jimi Hendrix,
Miles Davis.
Miles Davis, what's his name? Bruce Lee.
Mm-hmm. I saw that one.
Bruce Lee was so incredibly beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I got older, I wanted to reinvestigate Bruce Lee
Mm-hmm.
and to read his writings. Everything that Bruce Lee says, Jimi Hendrix says.
Mm.
Everything that Jimi Hendrix says, John
I'm
Lennon
gonna have
says.
to check that out. Yeah.
Everything that John Lennon says, Miles Davis says.
Uh-huh.
And everything Miles Davis says, Beethoven says.
Okay.
And what Beethoven says, John Coltrane says. They all say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they were completely tapped into the universal source.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew the principles, and the principles don't change.
Mm-hmm.
So when each artist would tap into that principle, however they explain what it is for them,
Mm-hmm.
after you hear it, it all sounds the same.
Yeah.
Because
it's just how you
Beethoven's
attack it.
Ninth
Mm-hmm.
is the same thing as John Coltrane's Love Supreme.
Uh-huh.
It's the same thing. 4 movements, and the expression is about the creator,
Mhm.
and their ode to the creator.
Mm-hmm. I see.
That's what I mean, I can hear Bruce Lee, same thing. When Bruce Lee says, you be like water.
Yeah.
Water can either flow or crash.
Right.
If you put water into a teapot, it becomes a teapot. If you put it in a glass, it becomes glass. Be like water, my friend. So you have to be fluid.
Yeah.
And so John, all these guys, Frida Kahlo, all of them did the same thing. They did the same thing. And that's what I'm doing for myself.
So if you were you, the younger you, what would you tell you?
Ooh, I know exactly what I would tell you.
What?
Okay. You spending too much time chasing pussy.
What?
That's what I would tell my younger self. It's like, you have such a gift. You have such creative energy.
Sorry, y'all.
And you're using all that creative energy over here.
Yeah.
And creative energy is sexual energy. It's the same thing. However, if you use it all over here, you're not going to have it over here.
Well, maybe you had to experience that in order to understand
I surely
it.
did. I'm so glad, just in retrospect, that I didn't become what I thought I was going to become, wealthy and famous as a younger man. I would have fucked it up. I'd have messed it up. Everything would have been gone.
Yeah. Wow.
Everything would have been gone, and I would have 20 children. I mean, I have 7 without any, without substantial wealth.
Right.
7 children, and it's all because of just who I am, period.
Yeah.
So if you take that and magnify it without understanding,
yeah,
then that's what would have happened.
Yeah.
And I'm glad.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been available for anyone.
Yeah.
So, but I'm available now, and I'm ready for wealth, material wealth.
Okay. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Living in this beautiful church. It's a church that I've taken out all of the pews. All of that is gone. Stained glass windows are up top. The bell tower is there, and my studio is up top. And there's a loft that goes to my studio, and then outside there's a pathway that leads to my treehouse. And there's a spiral
Still a kid, huh?
Spiral staircase leads up to the treehouse, and you wind the roof, and it does this.
Oh wow!
So it opens up, so the sun could just pour in. I have nice carpets. My music is there. I have wine there. My
And
beautiful woman is there.
You're just painting, huh? Just
I'm painting.
Yeah.
And then I'm unencumbered to travel about the world as I choose. All of my children have a foundation. All of them are set up financially to a point where they still have to go out and discover. Not an overwhelming amount where you're not motivated to discover. So, and my business there's just one artist that I would like to mention. His name is Kincaid, Thomas Kincaid. Thomas Kincaid was not recognized by the art community. He was called a kitsch artist.
A commercial artist?
Yeah, commercial. Thomas, when he died, I think he was worth about $50 million.
Wow.
He sold all of his own work in his own galleries in Northern California. And I've gotten to the point where I don't have to be recognized by museums and or these other entities, but to do something along the lines of what Kincaid did and to sell his work to whomever would like to buy it. And all of that revenue and those streams of income are just coming to him. And there's no middleman.
Yeah.
So that's what I see for myself.
Well, you better get going.
I'm getting going. T-shirts, art prints, coffee mugs, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have to be in a museum. I don't need I'm kind of past that. Kind of.
So any of your children artists?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all of them are, and they're really good.
One girl is a poet, right?
My
One of your
oldest
daughters?
daughter is
Uh-huh.
a poet. My oldest daughter said something to me a few weeks ago. She was moving into her new place,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked her about had they called her yet, and she said, "Pop, don't ask me if they called or not, because then I'll start thinking about why they haven't called. The universe is what it is, and the principles don't change.
That's pretty deep.
So you don't have to ask. I know you're asking because of this reason."
Right.
I was so delighted by her response.
Right.
Because all of these years of me
Yeah.
talking with her, she showed me that it's in there.
Right.
And I'm using what's in there.
Right.
And all I could do was, I call her back and I said, I so love you.
Yeah.
I so love you. That was so powerfully beautiful, and I understand.
Yeah. My son said that to me once, and it was like, wow. And I kept telling him, you're brilliant, you're awesome. And then one day I had a conflict with him, and he says, well, you told me I'm brilliant, didn't you? You know, it's like...
Hey, you can't say anything
No.
to that.
So I like to kind of close it down by a couple words, and I want you to explain them because we're pretty much done.
Okay.
Do you have anything else you want to share with the audience? Or you want to think about it and come back?
Yeah, we could.
Okay. Love. What do you think of love?
Me.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I think. I can see how I affect people around me.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel my effect of my expression of myself. No matter where I'm at, no matter what room I'm in, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
The effect of me in a room is the same. And the effect is always love.
Mm-hmm. Ocean.
It's the most beautiful thing. And I dream about the ocean all the time.
Hmm.
And I just had a dream the other night that I was flying over the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and I was telling my girlfriend that I was flying over the ocean, and she said, "But you had that dream all the time." So, yes, I love the sound of the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and I love what the ocean looks like, and I love what it feels like. There's I can't remember who said this, but he says, if you take a cup of the ocean out of the ocean, it's still the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be as vast as the body of it itself,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still the ocean. There's no separation.
Mm-hmm.
So when you pour it back in, where does that cup of water that you pour back into the ocean begin, and where does the ocean end?
Mm-hmm.
It never does. It just goes back.
Mm-hmm.
So
You got a squirrel behind you that keeps getting in your picture. He want to be a part of it. You don't see him, but he's there. So the inner man. The inner man.
I would say the inner man is conflict.
Mm-hmm.
The conflict comes from me achieving what I see in my mind, and then existing in this three-dimensional form, and being true to who I am. And so all of these different things, and then playing these different roles.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a father over here, then I'm a mate over here, then I'm an artist over here, and then I'm a philosopher here, and then I'm a scientist here, and I'm an alchemist here, and all these different roles. I'm playing all of these different roles, and the idea for me is to make sure that each role that I play, I'm still authentic to me, without splintering myself, which I've done in the past, and I didn't feel good about how the road that I was traveling. I didn't feel good about myself. I couldn't look at myself. But now I don't have that. I don't have that feeling anymore. I don't have the. You know when you don't have secrets anymore?
Right.
I don't have secrets. I don't have things that I need to hide. I don't have that anymore.
That's
I
cool.
remember having that and thinking, oh shit, they're gonna find out today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that.
You don't have to worry about that. So these are two words, style and fashion, because you got both. Tell me about style.
I have so much style. I'm sorry.
You
No,
do.
no.
No, you do.
No,
You do
no.
have a lot of style.
Okay, there's two guys that helped me with that took my style and blew it up.
Mm-hmm.
One, his name is Lonnie.
Mm-hmm.
And Lonnie, him and I have the same body type,
Mm-hmm.
same complexion, and every time we were together, we looked like brothers. He showed me some things, just how to move pieces around,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a pocket handkerchief
Mhm.
or a tie or a shirt.
Mm-hmm.
But he showed me things how to move it around, and he was always impeccably dressed.
Mm. Was he a
And-
designer or?
No, he should be.
Yeah.
He should be.
Yeah.
The other guy, his name is Lamb. Lamb told me, I'll never forget this. Lamb is the person who said, "What's your middle name?" And I said, "Henry." He says, "You gotta be fucking kidding." I said, "No, what are you talking about?" He says, "Man, you're an artist. You gotta use your whole name."
That's right. I was going to ask you.
He said, "You gotta use your whole name."
Yeah.
He's like, "Listen to this, Patrick Henry Johnson."
Mm-hmm.
From 2011 on,
Uh-huh.
I've been using Patrick Henry Johnson because of Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing Lamb said, and he is a closed horse.
Mm-hmm.
He is the most impeccably dressed man that I've ever seen,
Mhm.
other than Lonnie and Oswald Boateng.
Okay. Who's that?
Oswald Boateng is a Ghanaian designer. He
Okay.
lives in London.
Okay.
Google him.
Okay, I will.
He'll blow your mind.
Mm-hmm.
But Lamb said to me, he goes, with your body type, you can wear anything.
Anything. Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to match anything. He said you can wear stripes and plaids and polka dots, paisley,
Uh-huh.
all with the same outfit
Uh-huh.
and different fabrics.
Uh-huh.
Nothing has to match, and you can pull it off
Uh-huh.
because of your body type.
Right.
So, in his closet, no lie, he had 500 shirts, 400 jackets, 1,000 ties, 1,000 pair of socks,
Mhm.
1,000 pair of socks.
Mm-hmm.
Every color you could possibly think of, and they were color coded. They were lined up. And high-waisted pants, tight pant, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So he would go through the things that he couldn't wear, and he would say, "Try this on, try this on, try
Mhm.
this on." Camel hair, crushed velvet, and I would try things on. I would look at it. He said, "See,
Mm-hmm.
you can wear anything." So from Lonnie, from Lamb, and from Oswald Boateng
Mhm.
is where, and I've always thought from the 9th grade on that I looked good.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have a problem.
You are a mess.
I always thought, like, boy, you all right. But I didn't have a problem with looking good.
Uh-huh.
But those guys,
Mm-hmm.
that trinity was the one that pushed me over the top, where when I buy something, I can look at it and go, okay, that's
it. Huh?
that's it, that's it, that's it, that's it. My brother told me when I went to Florida, he says, "Nigga, what the fuck do you have on? None of that matches.
Uh-huh.
But that looks good. How do you do that?"
Uh-huh.
And for my brother, he matches everything.
Okay.
Yeah, everything has to match. If it don't match, he ain't wearing it.
Right.
But he says, well, the only person I've ever seen pull that off is you.
You. Mm.
So my idea is what you said about style and fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Style never goes out of fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't follow trends.
Mm-hmm.
They say you can't wear white after Labor Day. Fuck that.
Yeah.
You can't do this and you can't do that.
Mhm.
I don't do none of that.
Mm-hmm.
Jimi Hendrix has style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Prince,
Has
style. And they could wear anything.
Anything. Yep. That's
But you
true.
couldn't wear what Jimmy wore. Because that was Jimmy's thing.
Right.
I mean, he could wear a boa,
I
you know, and hip hug a leather pants.
Mhm.
Only he could do that. So
So what about the next two is, and these are the last two, romance and a black woman. Watch yourself.
Okay, I'm censoring myself.
I know, censor. Censor, please.
Okay, so I'll say,
Oh Lord, he took his hat off. Look.
okay, I love romance.
Uh-huh.
I love romance. I love, like, I would wash my woman's feet,
Mm-hmm.
oil her feet, massage her feet,
Mm-hmm.
and then cook her dinner.
Mm. That's all we need to know.
Just that's all I'm
That's
saying.
it. Oh, your imagination, right?
Yeah. And then just cook dinner.
Uh-huh.
And because once you, sex aside,
Mm-hmm.
once you do those things and it's
Mm-hmm.
natural to who you are,
Mm-hmm.
your woman will always take care of you in the same manner that you take care of her.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And I've discovered you don't have to have a lot of money to be creative in your expression of how you feel about your woman.
Mm-hmm.
And just, it's little things that you do. Because for someone, my 16-year-old daughter called me one day and she said, "Hey Dad, how are you?" So I'm looking at the phone, I'm going, I'm good, Gianna,
Uh-oh.
what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, I just called to say I love you, Dad." I said, "Wait a minute. You just called to tell me that?"
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Yeah, I gotta go." And she was off the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So for a 16-year-old child who's in Florida
Mm-hmm.
to call her dad to say, "I just called to tell you I love you," and
That's
to
nice.
get off the phone,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So to take all of that
Mm-hmm.
and to know that what she said, that's who I am.
Yeah.
And that's what I give back to whatever woman that I'm involved with.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I give to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was not honorable in my relationship with a woman,
Mm-hmm.
I would be with her, then I would be with her,
Mhm.
and all at the same time.
Mm.
But I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that anymore. Well, one is taxing.
Mm-hmm.
It's taxing not only physically, but it's taxing mentally and emotionally and spiritually. It's really taxing.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back at myself at my earlier age, and the Creator must have had a great plan for what it is that I have to do
Mm-hmm.
for my expression to the world, because I have not had anything terrible to happen to me where I'm debilitated or anything like that. And I'm really grateful about who I've become
Mm-hmm.
and how I affect who I'm around. And there's nothing about me that's contrived or made up, or I don't have to posture.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just really grateful about what and who I've become.
Great.
Oh, and black women,
Mm-hmm.
that I love. Okay, from all the spectrum of color,
Mm-hmm.
from light to dark,
Mhm.
and all in between, it don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't even matter. And from the ones with the haircuts like mine
Mm-hmm.
and the big afros like this, don't matter.
Yeah.
I like them all.
Okay.
I like them all.
Do you paint them? Paint
I love,
us.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I like them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how do you give back?
I think you just give back by being true to yourself. And when you are true to yourself, you give back and people know it. They know it. They know that what you're saying is coming from yourself. It's not plucked from the sky somewhere and you are parroting, someone else's words. They know what you're saying and what you're doing is from yourself.
Do you
So,
ever teach?
I love teaching. Yeah, I love teaching. I had a class in Rolling Hills last year, and ninth grade. These kids who were extremely privileged, I would say privileged monetarily, derelict in emotional content. And so what I provided for them was ears so they can speak and a heart where they can be expressive and then show them how to paint, how to draw. But it was more so of being in communication with someone that's not heard.
Sounds good. Well, I thank you, sir. Patrick Henry Johnson.
That's right.
That's right. Muralist of California, Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
Just
yes,
look
sir.
around on Crenshaw, La Brea, all over, and you'll see his work, and you'll see it on our YouTube channel, and you can see us at Dysonna Art Talk magazine. Go to the YouTube channel and look us up. And where can we find you?
You can find me at Patrick Henry Johnson on Instagram, and phjart.com is my website. Might not be up yet. It's being worked on right now. And I have a new mural that's coming in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is my hometown. And my mom has never seen me paint.
Oh, wow.
So the mural is 5 stories high by 50 feet wide, I think. So I'll be doing that mural next month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll look out for you, and thank you so much, and we'll see you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.